Greetings viewer, you join me aboard the new BMW M135i and it's really quick. This new M135i is quite a controversial model because it's based on BMW's new front-wheel drive 1 Series. But I guess it's controversial more among automotive journalists who really care about where the power goes in cars. But probably for most of this car's buyers, how much power it has is more important than where it goes. And besides, even if the previous top-of-the-range 1 Series was rear-wheel drive, many of them were bought with all-wheel drive, even if it's a completely different all-wheel drive system to the one that equips this car. In this 1 Series, in this M135i, power is usually sent to the front wheels, and it can shuffle up to 50% of the power to the rear wheels in low traction conditions, when the car feels like you need an extra shove from the rear. It's powered by a 2-liter engine that develops 306 horsepower and 450 Newton meters of torque. This is a bit less than the previous M140i. However, that car had a 6-cylinder 3-liter engine, but whereas this car's predecessor, the M140i, was unusual among its peers because it was the only rear-wheel drive hot hatch on the market, this new car is it's very similar to many of its rivals. And I must mention the Golf R, the Focus RS, the Audi S3, the Mercedes A35. So instead of doing what it was doing its own way, making the only rear-wheel drive hot hatch, BMW has now copied the pack, at least the formula, because the execution is quite different. I've driven quite a few of this car's direct rivals, and I have to admit that it's a really rather impressive car. I also drove the previous M140i, and it's one of my favorite cars ever that I've driven. It's just a great package. And while I already know that this car will not rise to the same level as that one, at least in my hierarchy, there's definitely a lot to like here, and I like it much more than I was expecting to. On the move, you can certainly feel this car isn't quite as quick as the 6-cylinder car it replaces. Even if it almost matches it for torque and power, that car was more effortless than this. In this car, you do have to push the engine just that little bit harder. It definitely doesn't sound strained or anything like that. It actually sounds good. Although, to be fair, I'm not sure what it really sounds like from inside the car, because whenever you put the car in sport mode, it pumps fake engine noise into the cabin. And just to show that BMW is slightly ashamed of the fact that it replaced a 6-cylinder car with a 4-cylinder car with front-wheel drive, the noise it pipes into the cabin is a 6-cylinder engine noise, as I shall now demonstrate. It doesn't sound like a 4-pot, and from the outside it doesn't sound like it does from the inside. I'm really not biased against this car in any way. It's actually a great little package. It's just that having driven the car before it, it's a bit of a letdown, to be honest. Like, I'm sure not that many buyers are going to care what BMW did to change it, especially since this new car is, well, it's more comfortable, it's roomier inside, it's more economical, and cleaner. And these are all things that matter. And my preference for the old 6-cylinder car is purely based on the fact that I like to drive it quickly on a twisty road. And when I did that in that car, I was blown away. I really enjoyed it. I especially like that B58 6-cylinder engine. It just gives me the chills thinking about it. But while the previous 6-cylinder engine was more characterful, more powerful and torqueier, this new engine, the 4-cylinder that powers this car, the 2-liter, its performance is nothing to be sneezed at. I mean, it can send this little car to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour from naught in 4.8 seconds. Granted, you do need to enable the launch control, but that's really rather simple. You just have to put the car in sport mode, move the shift lever to the left to put the gearbox in sport mode, then you put your left foot on the brake, you bury your right foot in the gas, and then it shows you a message that launch control is enabled, and you just let off the brake, and the car catapults off the line. It's quite impressive. It's really, really strong, I have to give it that. And it's really relentless. Something else that sets this new top-of-the-range 1 Series apart from the old top-of-the-range 1 Series is the gearbox. Since this is a transverse mounted engine, not a longitudinally mounted one, they couldn't use the same ZF gearbox. So this one is from a different supplier. It's also an 8-speed. And honestly, it's just as good as that gearbox, at least from my experience, driving the car for a few days. But at the same time, when you put it in its sportiest setting, it really slams you in the rear when you shift gears, when you upshift. That was one of my complaints with the old M140i, because whenever you put that car in its sportiest setting and the gearbox in its sportiest setting, the shifts were just too smooth. This car gives you a nice shunt when you upshift close to the red line. Regarding this car's exterior design, I have to say that I like it a lot. I do miss the old car's elongated front section, the kind of elongated front section you get in a vehicle with a longitudinally mounted engine. But for what it is, this new car is actually quite a little looker in my book. I like it surprisingly much. I did get to see some lesser models in the new 1 Series range, and I have to admit that this M135i is by far the best looking out of them all. It has new front and rear bumpers, unique rims that hide really big brakes, although hiding them is an understatement because these particular rims on this car are the optional M Sport rims, and they have really thin spokes and they don't hide anything. You can plainly see the 360 millimeter front rotors. The car also has a different rear bumper, which gets 2 fake vents on the sides, but I have to admit that I do like those fake vents. The rear end would have been a more barren place without them there. This car also has a dual exhaust, but it seems as if only the right exhaust is working most of the time. The left one is covered by a flap, which granted, it does open when you put the car in sport mode, but since today was a cold day, I was expecting to see steam coming out of both exhausts at the same rate. I do like this car a lot, and I like hot hatches generally speaking. And I know that in order to accurately assess them, you need a twisty bit of road with good tarmac, where you can push the car hard into a few corners just to gauge its handling prowess. And that's where we're heading now. One thing I've noticed during the few days I've had with this car is just how quiet it is, even when you don't want it to be. I'm now just cruising along at just under 60 kilometers an hour, and I don't have to raise my voice, although that tractor was kind of loud. But I don't have to raise my voice, even if I put my foot down. To be honest, I think there's more noise coming in through the speakers, since I'm in sport mode, than actual engine noise. And there's really no doubting how quick this car is, even not just off the line, where all-wheel drive really helps. But now I have a straight and empty bit of road. I put the gearbox in sport, it shifts down, and I floor it. And it takes some effort to keep my neck straight. Now we're doing quite some speed, so I'm just going to gently apply the brakes. So we're entering the road that has a few twists and turns. Sadly, I live in a part of the country that's quite flat, and all the best roads are quite far away, and it's a kind of a chore to get to them. But this road is pretty good and it's close to home, so I can see just what this car is made of. I'm now in sport individual mode with everything in its sportiest setting except for the suspension, although I think I'm going to put it... Okay, I'm in sport mode now. What's interesting about this car, now that I've driven it quicker around a few bends, is the fact that you just feel a little bit of torque steer, but not much. there's just some light tug on the wheel. It feels like a front-wheel drive car, as you would expect it to. It's not bad. I was really hoping for a sunnier day, but it's like 2 degrees Celsius out now, and the roads are a bit greasy, so I'm just going to back off a little bit. I would have driven it quicker on a warm day for sure. It's definitely a weapon, this car, and it's very good in its own right. It doesn't scratch the same itch as the M140i, but it's definitely good. It's fast, it's very planted on the road, the steering is quite sharp, and you don't have to apply a lot of luck to get the car to turn. The gearbox is excellent, and for my liking, it's even better than the previous one. And you can also feel the 450 Newton meters of torque. So I'm putting it in 8th, and let's see what it can do. Put my foot down. 100, I can hit a turbo. 120, 130, 140, 150. They're gonna burn my license. This is BMW's first traditional hot hatch, and it's amazing. I really like it. I really enjoy throwing it around. I see the stability control light flashing even now, but it doesn't really feel like it's losing grip. I guess the electronics are really good in this car. It's definitely helping me stay on the road and maintaining my quick pace. Yeah, it's a proper weapon, this. I really like it. Woo! Way too fast. Way too fast. But it's all about the corners, so let's see. Right-hander. Grippy. No drama. Left-hander. The best compliment I can pay this car is that it feels a lot like the Honda Civic Type R that I drove some time ago. It doesn't really feel four-wheel drive. It just feels like a really sorted front-wheel drive car. And that's a compliment, because it is a front-wheel drive car. It just sometimes sends some power to the rear, and no more than 50%. On corner exit, you can really feel the limited slip differential working its magic. So while BMW may have completely changed the formula for this car, it's not a misstep by any stretch of the imagination. Sure, something has been lost, but this is not a bad car. It's just different. As I said, it scratches a different itch. It scratches the hot hatch itch, whereas the previous one scratched the sports car itch. But since it's a better, more usable car, I'm pretty sure it's going to be more successful than the one it replaces. Especially since in Europe, some countries tax you by the displacement, and all cars that are under 2 liter are taxed far lower than a 3 liter car. So this alone will make this car more popular in some parts of Europe. This car is great at launching off the line. It's quite a special thing. And if it's even a tad greasy out, the front wheels will lose traction, and you will feel that the car shuffles the power back to the rears. It's really quite interesting, and it's not really that perceptible, but after you do a few launches in different grip conditions, you do notice the difference. Damn, I really wish I could have tested this car in summer to properly drive it, because I am a bit skittish right now. It's not the car's fault, it's just that I don't have the balls. It's quite fast. We're doing a lot of speed now. But since it's a BMW, it's not just good in a straight line. And even if it's a front-wheel drive BMW, it's not afraid of corners. fun. It's really fun. So all I can say to BMW for its first front-wheel drive biased hot hatches, it's impressive. It's really impressive. Good job.